Hello everybody, I've got a really cool deck for you. This is Southbound Garth, and we're just going to watch one replay today, make this video pretty quick. So it's been a while since I've played Shadow Era, but this is kind of a deck that I've been working on for a very long time and just came back to with some of the new cards that actually really help support this. That's Kidnap and Noxious Acquisitioner. So we're going to get to see that happen here. Now, in this game, we luckily get to go first, and we get that turn 2 Bad Santa, which is really nice, getting that card advantage there. After that, I think we can sacrifice the other Bad Santa because we don't want to give this deck, a very aggressive Reika deck, more draw. And because we had to kind of play that Bad Santa early, we are a little bit behind on the board. That 4 damage from the Feasterling is really going to hurt. We need to do whatever we can to slow them down. Now, one thing that's really cool about this deck is good contacts there is reducing the cost of all rogue allies we play by 1. So that's why we were able to play the Covert Op, the Night Owl, and our Silent Assassin all in the same turn. It's because of this card called Good Contacts. And this is synergizing really well with this deck because of the fact that we want to be returning cards back to our hand and playing them again and again. So the cheaper they are, the better. And yeah, that's why you want to play Good Contacts on turn 3 every game. Basically, no matter what, you're losing the board, still play it. It's okay. There are a few exceptions, but yeah, you want the Good Contacts. It's a great card, and it's going to allow us to play like these 2 Rabble Rousers. Normally, we couldn't do this play here. We're just going to kill that Agnar. Against the Agnar deck, we want to kill those Agnars and get rid of them as soon as we can. Our opponent is going to do a Bad Santa. They are going to fill up our hand this time, and then this Feasterling's going to hit our face, which really hurts because that Thrift Assault Pass can do some nasty damage to us, but we're able to Noxious Acquisitioner the Feasterling, draw a card off of that, which is where some of the true power of this that card lies, is giving you draw power as well as having that poison and 1 damage effect, which is like 2 damage on a summon, which is really, really strong. So Noxious Acquisitioner, a great card. Here I'm going to show you a Vozitian Orders Kidnap play. So because we've summoned an ally this turn, we can actually pick up an ally. I'm going to pick up Caged Savage. Now the reason I'm picking up Caged Savage, and maybe I should have just played Noxious Acquisitioner on that Covert Operative, but Caged Savage is actually a good counter to Agnar, funnily enough, because it has so much health, and when your opponent pings it with Agnar, it's going to get a damage. So I really like playing Caged Savage against an Agnar deck. I think it's one of the better ways to counter Agnar. Here we're going to Vozitian Orders the Rabble Rouser. The reason I want Rabble Rouser in my hand is just in case my opponent does something that would require me to like take back the board, and you almost always want to have an ally in your hand, just because that's going to be how you're going to trigger your Vozitian Orders. So you don't want to have a situation where you have no allies in hand to trigger your Vozitian Orders, because that's going to make it like you might have your Kidnap and not be able to use it. Okay, so that's the replay. In terms of how well this deck has been doing, you know, it's still more of a fun deck. I've been losing to a lot of control decks, so like Dark Claw, which is not playing allies, is really, really hard. This 80-card Garth Tower deck is another really hard matchup, just because we're kind of, you know, it's weird because we're kind of like a deck that hates on allies, and we're not that fast. So it's not good against control decks and not good against those late game control decks, but it's great against those ally based builds that are trying to play those cheap allies that you can kidnap, or those allies that you can kill with Rabble Rouser combos and Noxious Acquisitioners. So this really excels if you're going against any kind of ally based deck. In my opinion, with the Covert Operatives, sending them back to the hand and costing 1 when you have good contacts. So Yeah, here's the list. 3 Covert Op. I was really happy with this card. This is basically retreat, but it helps become 1 cost with our good contacts there. It helps in a pinch let us return our own ally to our hand and put out a 0/2 body on board, which can be buffed with Rabble Rouser. It has stealth when its attack is 0, which is sometimes relevant. And it just synergizes so well in this deck. You can Roadless Traveled it. Yeah, really fun card. Silent Assassin, the best 2-drop in our deck outside of... Actually, I would probably rather see Vozitian Orders on turn 2. I love playing Vozitian Orders on 2, but Silent Assassin is another great 2-drop, and it becomes 1 cost with the good contacts. It has stealth, a 3/3. That's just a really solid body. This is an amazing card into those really aggressive decks. You play this, they can't attack it, and then you get to attack them after with 3 damage, or you can Rabble Rouse it for 5 damage. That's really, really good. Night Owl. Now, the reason I'm playing this is because when it's 2 cost, it's like a 2 cost 3/2 that draws you a card when it dies. That's an amazing value. So Night Owl is amazing in this deck, just as kind of like a cantrip body. Rabble Rouser is kind of the key card of the deck, summoning it, letting you draw a card, and giving everything to attack. So let me talk to you about a card I'm not playing, and a card that I think, well, I kind of worked on this card, and I didn't realize it at the time, but what I've come to realize after playing this deck a lot is Undercity Smuggler is just a worse Rabble Rouser. Yeah, you can return this to your hand to draw a card, but you can just summon Rabble Rouser to draw a card too, and Rabble Rouser has an actual effect. So that's why we're not running Undercity Smuggler, even though this deck is all about returning cards from play to the hand. And yeah, again, this is not something I realized when actually designing this card. I have 41 of them. Yeah, but it's something that I realized after playing this deck a lot is, you don't want that card, you want Rabble Rouser. Rabble Rouser gets you the draw even if you're not returning it to the hand. It's just a more consistent card. I think what Undercity Smuggler needs is a reason to make this returning pay off. I think maybe if it cost nothing to play after it returned to the hand that turn, or if it lost a cost, maybe if it cost 2 and was a 2/3, maybe if it did something, or even if it just had higher stats, like a 3/4 or a 2/5, would make this maybe a little better than Rabble Rouser. 3/3 is still, I guess it is better stats than Rabble Rouser, so that would be the reason you would play it over Rabble Rouser. But yeah, I just feel like the effect of Rabble Rouser is much better, and so the slot just gets filled by Rabble Rouser. 2 Slithering Viper. Now, I was running 4 for a long time, but after I played more with Noxious Acquisitioner, I realized that if I'm playing a 4-drop or now a 3-drop, 3 cost with good contacts, I would way rather it be Noxious Acquisitioner, and the Slithering Vipers were kind of redundant with that. Slithering Viper is actually worse than Noxious Acquisitioner in this deck in particular, because we want to be drawing cards off of our allies that are super cheap. That's how we're going to get the best value. We need to be drawing a lot of cards, and we want that draw to be on our allies that are cheaper than normal. So that's why Noxious Acquisitioner is so much better, and with Garth, you can deal 1 damage to them, and then deal 1 poison damage to them, which is double to 2 poison damage, and then on their turn, they take poison damage from the start of their turn, so you can deal 5 damage with a Garth plus Noxious Acquisitioner combo, and then you get a draw card for killing their ally. So that's an amazing combo there. It's why Noxious Acquisitioner is just a better Slithering Viper in this deck. Now, if you have discard synergies, if you've got other ways to do the Slithering Viper stuff, and maybe if you have less stealth allies already, then it starts to change. But yeah, funnily enough, Slithering Viper was not performing for me. Kidnap. This is such a good card. One of the new cards that just got released that kind of makes this deck, because there's so many aggro decks out there right now that are just trying to spam all these low-cost allies. This is a 0 cost. Your ally gets disabled and I get to take it, and then I get to put it in my hand with Vozitian Orders, like just for free. This is such an insane card into those matchups where your opponent is running all these low-cost allies. You just steal their Agnar, you steal their Cage Savage, you steal whatever you want, and then you put it in your hand, and so then you don't have to pay the sustain cost. So that you definitely don't want to be paying that sustain cost turn after turn, the 1 casting cost. And another thing to watch out for is you have to exhaust your hero, so be really careful. I still make mistakes and misplays because of that. Exhausting your hero is actually a pretty big cost, especially when we have weapons in this deck. So that's actually part of the reason why I went lower on weapons. I'm only running 1 Spirit Shuriken, is because Kidnap is exhausting your hero, and so yeah, the weapons are less good when your hero is always exhausted. But it's so worth it because this is such a good card, and bouncing those opposing allies into your hand and taking them for free is just so strong. We're running 2 Bad Santa. Now, Bad Santa is in here because it synergizes really well with Covert Operative. You bounce their ally back to their hand, and then you draw back up with Bad Santa. Their hand is clogged. They're not drawing all their 3 cards, while you get to draw your full 3 cards and keep going. We have cost reductions in this deck, so Bad Santa is good for that reason. And so just Bad Santa is a really good card. I like running on 2 because I think it can brick you a little bit. And I was already a little uncomfortable with my ability and item ratio to my ally ratio. I think, if anything, I want to add in more allies and cut some of these abilities. But Bad Santa is a really good card. Good Contacts is kind of the heart of the deck. We've got to run 4 of them. Great card. 1 Road Less Traveled. Now, I was really worried about this card bricking me, but it's such an amazing card in the right situation. When you get to return a Covert Operative to your hand, or your opponent steals one of your cards and plays it, and then Road Less Traveling it back to your hand, is just so strong, and having the option to have this card is really good as a way to generate card advantage. Now, one thing about this card is it's expensive. You definitely don't want to see more than 1 in your hand at one time, and that's why we're only running 1. You don't want to see multiple copies of this. When you do see it, and if you're seeing it not that often, you can sometimes hit those situations where it's just such an amazing card. So that's why it's a 1 of. 3 Stop Thief. There's a lot of items in the meta, especially against the Agnar decks, regardless of whether you're facing the Reika version or like one of the Moonstalker versions. You want to be able to blow up their armor that keeps them drawing cards. That slows them down a ton, and Stop Thief is amazing because it ramps us. So getting that ramp off is really good. Hitlist, another 1 of. Now, you could run more. I felt like, even though it's only 1 cost, this card can brick you, like, especially if you're not killing allies, and sometimes we're not killing allies until like turn 5. So, you know, because we've got other ways to deal with allies. We've got ways to bounce them and put them in our hand. So we're not killing allies enough for me to feel comfortable running more hit lists. Now, obviously, it's just a broken card, so maybe you run more. I don't know what the right answer is there, but I like running 1. That makes it so that it's not bricking us. It means that even if like we never draw into multiples, so it just feels good as a 1 of, and that's why I ran at 1. And you'll notice I'm running a lot of 1 ofs in this deck. I think that's the right call here. We want to be light on items, so and abilities, because we want to be maximizing good contacts by playing a lot of allies. So these 1 ofs, you know, they're just too good to cut, but as 1 ofs, they're really powerful because you're never going to brick with them either. So we're not bricking ourselves by running these abilities and items. So the Last Harvest is key. I would almost run more of these because this can be a win condition on its own, of just buffing your board by 1/1. That's insane for 3 cost in the late game when we just spam our hand out and then we can the Last Harvest it. Vozitian Orders, amazing card. I always want to see this on turn 2. I always want to see this card, period. Being able to bounce a card every turn is amazing, especially with Kidnap. Augmenting Golem is a one of here. Now, one of the weaknesses of this deck is that all of our allies have really low health. I mean, you know, like Rabble Rouser is 2 health, Night Owl is 2 health, Silent Assassin is 3 health. Honestly, we have nothing above 5 health, and that's a huge problem against Supernova. Like, Supernova just kills us. So that's why Augmenting Golem is here, just giving us that +1 health to everything. That really helps kind of against a lot of those decks that, you know, can deal damage to allies. Really like this card as a one of. I just really like this card in general. It's so flexible. When you need that one attack, you can make it turn into an ally. Just a really awesome card as a one of here. Poison Lace Gloves. Now, I actually didn't like this card that much. I know that's kind of like what you do with Noxious Acquisitioner. It's supposed to, you know, double the effectiveness of Noxious Acquisitioner. But, you know, this is not really a poison deck. This is kind of like a, you know, self-bounce deck. We're not really trying to maximize the value of our poison damage. And for that reason, Poison Lace Gloves is actually not that good in this deck. I would even cut it maybe. But I felt like as a one of, you know, maybe we'll find it and it'll be good sometimes. So I'm happy with it as a one of. I wouldn't run more than that. 1 Spirit Shuriken. Now again, because of Kidnap, weapons are less good in this deck, but Spirit Shuriken is just such a good card, especially in this meta right now. Just being able to use your shadow energy that are like for this ability is fantastic. This just punishes those large boards that people are building up and spamming the board with like a lot of allies. You know, this punishes that. And it's cheaper than Ankle Breaker. You know, Ankle Breaker is a little too expensive for this deck, I think, because it's 5 cost. I don't know. Ankle Breaker, like, if I had the choice between seeing an Ankle Breaker and Spirit Shuriken, I'd rather go Spirit Shuriken almost every time. You know, if the only time that Ankle Breaker I kind of missed that was against those control decks where that 2 attack would have actually helped. And finally, 1 copy of Shold. I really like this as a one of. That means you're not going to brick with this card, but this is such a fantastic card against some decks that are running artifacts. It's a fantastic deck against anything that wants to recycle any weapons or items. And the best part about this is the self-bounce effect that lets you bounce back an ally for 2 shadow energy. And that's really good in some matchups where Garth's ability is sometimes not that good. And having the 2 shadow energy to bounce something is a really strong effect, actually. And I think that just goes to show how strong Vozitian Orders is. This is just like, you don't even have to pay shadow energy for it, turn after turn. And this is, you have to pay 2 shadow energy to return stuff to your hand. So I know this card got memed on. You know, like, Vozitian Orders was always this card that was bad, but I actually think it's good right now. I think this is a good card. People maybe are not playing it because of the fact that it's been such a bad card for such a long time, but this is actually a good card, especially in this deck, especially with Kidnap. Now, another card I didn't play that I think you could play, but I cut from my list because it wasn't performing for me. It's just too expensive, but Coercion is kind of like the big the Kidnap, you know, the original Kidnap. This is just a worse Kidnap. I just never wanted to see this. Like, yeah, you can steal a fatty, but if your opponent plays a fatty, I mean, just Garth it and kill it with, like, you know, Rabble Rouser, or like bounce it to the hand with Covert Operative. We already have answers to fatties, so Coercion was just not doing anything. We need answers to weenies, and that's why Kidnap is much better than Coercion, at least in this deck. What else did I not run? Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like Treasure Seeker, I didn't run because it's not a rogue ally. There were other things I just chose to cut, but yeah, that's the deck list. If you want the code, here's the code. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought, and thanks for watching.